Book covers. Love them or hate them, we're going to judge them anyways. If you can spare me 10 minutes of your time, I promise you this isn't an unnecessary topic, but it is an important one, especially as a writer like yourself. As someone who's written 3 books in the past few years of my life, I've noticed something extreme about books. I am an advocate for the minimalist design. That's the biggest thing I've seen people complain about with book covers. Let's use an example like The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games is one of the greatest book covers of all time. The simplicity of the colors, the title, the Suzanne Collins in the bottom side, it is effortless. But compare that to Bobby Hall's Supermarket. Yeah, it's a problem, all right. But we're going to explain that and more to understand why book covers are so important and the lie in which they say don't judge a book by its cover and what it truly means from a writing perspective. A book cover, realistically, is the cover of a book. It reflects the message, the tone, the overall feeling you get out of a novel. Let's use the example of how to read a book. Yes, this is a real book, and yes, does it seem a bit pretentious, but the use of books in the literal how to read books results in this classical, almost nostalgic feeling. It's a fantastic cover using a nice blend of colors that ultimately shows why it works. Now, I'm not the best at studying art. I clearly don't know what the best angle or the best degree is when showing characters or designs, but what I do want to talk about is my favorite kinds of covers. I want to discuss why they work for that reason and why some stories have this problem of which the cover is too minimal to the point where I don't want to read it. If I show you exactly why there are some books I do read and why we don't, it'll help explain why we judge books in the first place. When we think about a cover, let me use one of my favorites is The Magic of Ordinary Days by Anne Howard Creel. The use of the main character Olivia at the bottom is a great centerpiece, but it's also the use of fields, having this story set in the 1930s. We also have the additional tree in the background, as well as this old-timey feeling that ultimately conveys the nostalgic edge this book has. I finished this novel in about 1 day. It was an extremely short novel, but I really adored how it came together. And it's one of my favorite stories I read in the past year. Now compare that to a nonfiction piece like Atomic Habits. This is, in my opinion, one of the most boring covers. As much as I love the advice this cover gives, I do want to discuss how, in my opinion, stuff like Atomic Habits really sells the minimalist design. As I said at the beginning of this video, minimalism in covers is not a bad thing. I love it even. Atomic Habits isn't one of my favorites, sadly. It puts off the feeling too well, and it feels so minimal that I often don't want to read it. I love what James Clear wrote, yes, but the cover itself took me away. What truly sells a story is 2 major things. 1, the premise and what it's going to be about, and 2, the audience reception. I'm going to use a case of a different medium, an album, to explain this a little better. One of my favorite albums of all time is The Strokes' Is This It? Now, this is the international release that we see on streaming and in the US. It is genuinely a top 5 album cover of all time. And then you compare that to the European release, and holy hell is it terrible. I don't like the cover. You can clearly tell what it is, but for me at least, it was the biggest selling point on exactly why I would listen to the record or not. And same case applies with a book. When you see the cover of a book, you're visualizing the story at hand, similar to how in music you visualize the colors and the tone based on what you see. And when you read something that feels warm and comfortable, you'll feel warm and comfortable. Compare that to a more psychological thriller such as Phantoms, ignoring the author in the back. You still have this massive tone that reflects how the author is going to portray their story. Now, as all writers, we should understand both the tone of our story as well as what audience we're going to make it for. When we consider those aspects, the cover stands out much more clearly. There's many cases of covers that have this beautiful art around it. For instance, the Harry Potter series, as well as the Hunger Games series, once again, that use these more simplified elements to portray the story at hand. Now, those are more visual stories due to them being fictional. But in the case of nonfiction, I see this a lot, especially for stories like Lighter here, with it having the same Atomic Habits problem, of which there's just nothing to talk about with the cover. It does one thing: show a simple color and call it a day. Is it a bad thing, though? I want to say no. Sometimes a cover may be overdoing it in the position that we're showing. One of my favorite examples is The Way of the Wizard. It is a beautiful cover, yes, but the quality doesn't really reflect how the writing tells itself. And when you consider that, there's so many different perspectives to take covers. That doesn't even mention alternative covers on top of that. It's all about how you're going to consume media. What do you personally enjoy? For me, I don't mind the minimalist color, but it does reflect a feeling of boredom we see in the modern age. I want there to be a lot more intricate cover. And I can't truly say this as someone who's made 3 book covers that many would call minimalist. My favorite has to be the one reflecting my favorite novel I've written, The Winning Complex. It has this bright purple color that reflects how simple yet devastating the story is going to be. I use minimalism to my best ability because for me, the more minimalist a cover can be without sacrificing what the visual elements the story is going to be makes it fantastic. If you want to see what I mean, look at 1984. Now, this is an alternative cover to the main one you see all the time with the eyeball. However, this is one of my favorite covers of all time because of the fact that it is so extreme. It is provocative. The flashing red and the eyeball in the middle, coupled with the handwriting from both 1984 and George Orwell, portrays this often luminous feeling. It's terrifying, to say the least, but it's powerful. And that is easily the reason why I want to say it's one of my favorite covers of all time. It's so easy to forget that judging a book by its cover isn't just about looking at a book and saying it's bad. I mean, let me use another modern example. Desert Star by Michael Connelly. This cover is terrible. I'm going to be straight up honest. This is a boring book you pick up at the library because you're bored. But I just apparently have it because my mom got it for me for Christmas. As I try to understand covers a bit more, I feel and truly hear why people say they don't like the minimalist cover. It's like the minimalist logo designs, with how some advocate for minimalism because it gets straight to the point, while others feel it loses its charm. For me, something like 1984 works better than a supermarket. Pull it out. For me, a 1984 works better than a supermarket because of the fact that it uses its elements greatly. Supermarket loses its edge because it's just supermarket. The cover doesn't reflect the tone of the book at all. It doesn't really help us in visualizing things. 1984, however, paints this red sky image that often feels haunting. It's powerful, to say the least. And sometimes a cover can feel like it's blue balling the reader. One of my favorite examples is Catcher in the Rye. This cover goes so hard, man. I love how this cover came together. But for me, the story itself isn't a reflection of the cover, as this cover itself is a top 5 cover of all time, but the story is among the most overrated. In short, how you consume a cover depends on you once again. But I do want to say objectively good covers do what they're supposed to be. Make us judge it for the better. I don't like the saying that judging a book by its cover is bad. It's not. As we've seen in many examples today and the images I flashed on screen, judging a book by its cover is important to understand why we read the book in the first place. Not only does it create an iconic memory and iconic image, but also visualizes the iconography present in the story and helps us be more aware and understanding of the world we're reading. So if you want to be able to create a world that many will pick up, many will instantly gravitate and pull towards, then you must create a good cover. I'm not a logo designer or anything. I would highly suggest looking deep into that if you want to figure out that more. But my biggest advice is to reflect the tone of your story. Use colors that reflect how it's going to be presented, i.e., red is terror, blue is sadness, green is peace, etc. And last but not least, use an element that creates tension. By tension, it doesn't have to be an unpleasant kind, but something that helps us visualize what we're going to read. For instance, the old Lord of the Rings covers do this fantastic job of building the more mythological world with these hand-drawn covers. At least the covers I've seen, compared to it in the modern age with the more minimalist design of just the ring. As a whole, do what you can with your cover, and if you don't have enough money, go use Canva. Thank you for watching today's video. Use this information wisely to continue inspiring others. I love talking about book covers, and I'm not the best at it, but I have been getting better each and every year. So if you want personal help to write your own cover and write your own story for that matter, then check out my Instagram down the top link in the description, as well as my books down there as well. Until next time, I am Arnel Arcega. Keep on reading, keep on writing, and take care.